most challenging part was actually reduce the number of lost pings to a minimum. More control and decoupling your hardware from the software layer. Let's call it I can go on holiday for a couple of days without worrying too much.
But are you packing your laptop or not?
I will always pack my laptop.
In this story, we will go deeper into technical side, architecture, automation, and migration journey behind this deployment.
Nice.
Together with me again, I have Alex. And Alex, before we will go to the technical, could you briefly introduce this project once again?
All right, so thank you, Łukasz, for having me. It's great to be here.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so the project we were looking at for IP Nexia specifically, it was actually, they had today a VXLAN deployment running Cisco hardware. But it was a little bit of a tricky situation because they didn't have really like a spine leaf topology. They had leaves, but they were using core routers actually for the underlay. So this is actually a little bit to give you an idea of the initial starting point where we came in and to have a look at like, okay, what are we going to do? Because there were some specific requirements. We needed to be flexible as well because we wanted to add some data centers and we go a little bit more deep dive later into that topic specifically. So the project itself was actually to replace the end of sales hardware, VXLAN deployment, which is not really a VXLAN. It was a VXLAN deployment, but not spine leaf topology. And we needed to look at what is available in the market. So this is a little bit in a nutshell.
And a few words about the customer.
All right, the customer, so IP Nexia, it's a service provider focusing really strongly on voice, but not only in voice, but they're also providing managed service to their customers. So this is a little bit in a nutshell about the customer. So they have a lot of SBCs running virtual. Nowadays, it's mostly all virtual, not hardware anymore. So that's some of the things that we needed to take into consideration as well for the bandwidth requirements.
And speaking about the main goals of this deployment?
Right, so it's be future ready, be able to provide the flexibility, make sure that there is automation from day zero. So which means that's one of the things that was actually most important as well because it's a smaller customer. So they have not a big engineering team, so it's really helped us as well. That's one of the key components that we needed to take into consideration. And the main goal was actually to replace aging hardware and specifically also look at having not a vendor lock-in. Whatever happens on hardware, because you know, since whatever happened with COVID, delivery times were crazy.
Now we see the same, there are some nervous situations happening, which are shaking the market.
Indeed, and this is something that we wanted to tackle as well, that it doesn't matter whatever operating system that we're running, specifically from a network operating system, that we can decouple it actually from the hardware.
So what was the starting architecture before this project? You already mentioned that it was some kind of leaf and spine.
It was, yeah, indeed. It was actually, you know, the customer had 4 leaves as an underlay. So it was based on Cisco equipment, so which means we needed to have some form of multicast available. And they were using Cisco core routers based on iOS XR that provided actually the underlay for making sure that there was the VTEP establishment between the leaves. So it was like it's like a leaf topology without the spines.
Okay.
Using routers as a functionality for the underlay.
How we should call it? Flat close?
yeah, flat close. Yeah, I don't know. It's not a closed topology, but let's see. I don't know if there's a specific name, but okay, let's be honest. Okay, it worked. I mean, it worked, and they had also a stable network, but it's the aging hardware, no support anymore. Also the flexibility. You know, we like to look at an architecture point of view where we have more control about what we want to do from an organization point of view as well.
So what kind of the architecture did you design for this specific project?
Right, so we really went to look at the architecture. It's a spine leaf topology, right? A closed design.
Full, not flat.
Using spines, using leaves, right? But also one of the things that we are actively looking at, we needed to support as well a multiple DC. So which means actually, not for now, but like in the near future, they will introduce a new data center. So which means also we wanted to make sure that we have this opportunity where we can actually provide layer 2 services over the layer 3 network. That's why we looked at what is available in the market. And of course, you know, when you do data center deployments, spine leaf topology, it's predictable, you know, it's 2 hops away between each other endpoint. But also, if we introduce a secondary data center or a tertiary data center, we can provide layer 2 services with a functionality that's called multi-site or multi-pod, or how do you want to call it, right?
Speaking maybe about the protocols, what you are running there?
What we're running actually, you know, it's a classic deployment that we do. We're having an underlay network using spine leaf topology. We're using OSPF actually, because we're not using BGP. Yeah, we're not using BGP because I like the fact, for me personally, you know, if you're using a BGP or eBGP as an underlay, you need to have different AS numbers, etc., etc. It's not something that I'm, you know, we try to be not as complex, which means also from a management point of view, we would like to restrict. And of course, you know, running OSPF as an underlay, it's a small scale fabric, which is enough for this customer. So we do use OSPF as an underlay, but full mesh iBGP on top of it, using the spines as route reflector.
So how that improve? I know that it is just the beginning. You are mentioning maybe different data centers, but inside the data centers, are there also any plans of the expansion?
Yeah, indeed, because now we look at as well increasing the number of VTEPs, right? Because we need to have the requirements, because there is an explosion of services that the IP Nexia is going to offer to their customers. So we need to be flexible as well. And we haven't talked about it yet, but again, I like to look at the architecture from a holistic point of view, but also from an automation point of view, because I don't want to go to do a lot of physical repetitive tasks, right? I try to build something from scratch, so which means what we did today is from day 0, actually, when the hardware is actually physically racked, the config is using ZTP. It fetches its basic day 0 configuration. It connects to the single source of truth. By the way, we're using NetBox as a single source of truth. And it then fetches the configuration. That's for day 1. And then for day 2, we're using Ansible for completely creating the configuration.
You know that my heart is with the hardware.
Of course.
What do you have there? Tell me.
Right. So we're using, in the previous discussion that we had, it's a project that's already going on since 3 years, and we went together with the customer, we went to San Jose, and we met up with different hardware vendors, and one of the vendors that we talked to was Edgecore. And fast forward now, 3 years later, we deployed Edgecore hardware with Enterprise SONiC.
Okay.
And you might think about, okay, open networking, but why Enterprise SONiC? Again, comes down, if we want to use multiple data centers, I need to have, of course, the software support. And this is where STORDIS also comes into place, because you need to have a partner that provides me with a guarantee if something goes haywire or goes south that I can rely on.
And previously, Misha was saying that there is no room for any downtime, yeah? So,
indeed, it's important. Yeah.
Someone need to be blamed on the SLA level.
Yeah, indeed. It's going to be me then. If I did, let's take it like a fat finger configuration issue. But then again, we're doing automation, so you know, we try to avoid manual configuration anyway. So
you know, we've been supporting you on that hardware side, but what was the decision behind? Which system finally customer select, and briefly why?
Right. So you know, for this particular project, it's a small-scale fabric data center. Of course, we're going to improve and add a secondary data center, etc. We chose the Edgecore as a spine. We used the 7732 with 100 gig. Yeah,
this is the Trident 3X7.
Yes, indeed, that's the one. And as a leaf, we took the
25G.
Yes, 25G. So
73, 26, 50.
Correct.
6X.
X, indeed, that's the hardware that we took. Again, we took the Enterprise SONiC edition because, again, features have been tested concurrently. We know that exactly the features that we need are been tested and it's supported for an enterprise environment.
Perfect. So, going or talking a bit more about day one automation. So, what did you decide to automate everything from the day one? And maybe before you answer, was that working from the day one?
Yeah, well, it took, indeed, it was working because you boot in ONI, it gets an IP address, right? It fetches its configuration file. Once it's actually done, well, not a configuration file, it says like, okay, we specify which software version that it needs to run.
Mm-hmm.
So it boots actually then in enterprise SONiC, right? Once it boots, it gets a new IP address, and then it fetches actually its day one configuration. So it's actually something that we created, and it's actually reproducible as well. So it's something that we looked at holistically. How can we automate those kind of things? So which means nowadays, if we want to add 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 additional VTEPs or leaves, we will call it, it's all automated from day zero. So which is great.
So you already mentioned NetBox use.
Yeah.
Could you tell me more about the whole use case and your implementation, and also the challenges? Yeah, if there been any?
Yeah. So there were a few iterations. Let's call it like this. It's
okay.
not. So from NetBox, yeah, we're using NetBox as a single source of truth, and we have some REST API calls that actually build the hardware type from the leaves and the spines, right? Because it's based on specific tags. It looks at a specific tags. If a tag is specifically set, if it's a spine or a leaf, there's different, the ConfDB, the JSON DB. So it's actually based on, because we need to have a template, right? We're using templates. It's based on the type of hardware and the tag set in NetBox.
Mm-hmm.
It will fetch then the specific template configuration. So it was a little bit of iterations. We spent a lot of time. We spent some time to get it right. But yeah, now, depending on the flexibility also, it depends if we want to have a different type of leaf, for example, or a spine, or we want to grow, right? We just create a template, specifically a different tag, and once that's done, it actually downloads the correct software and puts a template configuration on it.
So network inventory is not an issue and a challenge any longer?
No, indeed. That's not it. Now it's actually, we populate NetBox, and we're using single source of truth, and NetBox as a single source of truth. We just populate a different leaf. We use also different tags. So, for example, we have staging, deployed, those kind of things. And based on that tag, it's actually, if a tag is, for example, staging, it will then check for the device. If it's in staging, it will download the day one configuration. As a moment that the day one configuration has been deployed, the switch then informs NetBox, right, the single source of truth, that is ready for going in production. This means once it's ready for production, we can then run Ansible playbooks.
That was thinking to ask you, yeah? So now then the Ansible is entering the game.
Yeah, indeed. So and we're using Ansible. Of course, Ansible playbooks for SONiC configuration, and we're using this actually to do the day two configuration, which means actually, the basic configuration is for example, the NTP, DNS, those kind of things, right? And day two configuration is really building your VXLAN fabric. So which means configuring the VNIs, those kind of things, again, based out of information that comes out of NetBox.
So was there a lot of efforts and development on your side to maybe go with some specific playbooks, or you find everything what you need, or what was the process? Because I know that there are some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, we looked at what was available on the market, and we're using actually the Dell playbooks for Ansible, which is, for our use case and the needs, it's fine enough.
Okay.
So we can use whatever is available there. So we didn't put a lot of effort. Of course, it's a structure how you as an organization want to look at certain, how your playbook is structured, etc. But for now, this is actually, we are using the Dell playbooks, and they're sufficient for the use case that we have. Never say never, but you never know what's around the corner. So maybe we're going to take a different approach. But for now, it's good enough for us.
How do you see the SONiC and open networking on the campus area today? 50% off. Do you believe that it is more like a marketing slogan or?
Let's call it, I can go on holiday for a couple of days without worrying too much.
But are you packing your laptop or not?
I will always pack my laptop.
So, we cannot have here any downtime. So how you manage the migration? Yeah, that cannot stop. Yeah, you cannot just wake up in the middle of the night and do it. So
yeah, so it was a process. We actually, of course, we built a proof of concept first, right? So we built actually the secondary network, which is available, make sure that everything is working as expected, the configuration is fine-tuned, exactly we know what it is. And then, what we did is actually look at how can we migrate. And, at a certain point in time, you need to interlink your old and new network. So it's just layer 2 connectivity, right? So it's really straightforward, layer 2 connectivity between the two fabrics, right? And we are actually started moving workloads, but keep the SVI or the anycast gateway still on the legacy network. Once the VLAN was moved, we moved the anycast gateway.
So was that, I don't know, the most challenging part, or it doesn't sound like, like something which is wake you up in the middle of the night?
No, well, the challenging part was, of course, we knew where I like using ECMP where possible, right? So there's also firewall integration, etc., etc. We're using, in this specific use case, we're using Palo Alto. We're using them actually as an active situation, which means actually we have multiple VRFs configured on our infrastructure. Each VRF is actually dynamically peering with the Palo Altos with BGP to provide northbound connectivity. From an anycast point of view, the most challenging part was actually make sure when we move the anycast gateway from the legacy one, that we reduce the number of lost pings to a minimum. Right?
Okay, okay, yeah.
We did some automation, of course. We tested it out, different scenarios, and it's actually we created some playbooks that actually shut down the SVI on the legacy one and activate it actually on the new network. Now, the particular thing that we did is actually we used the same MAC address from the legacy environment to the new environment, so reduced actually not, so that we don't need to do some relearning.
This is reminding me my old time when I was the serviceman for one ISP, and when you had some failures with those wireless cards, you've been always replacing and cloning MAC address. Yeah?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, indeed. But it's still a process. It's still doing the job. So which is something that you could do, and of course, it was a process. We didn't do that in a big bang, but we did some. We took some test, let's call it test VNIs that we wanted to move, see how it interacted actually in real life, and see how much potential downtime was there. But we reduced it, and then once the testing was satisfactory for the customer as well, we did a migration. And I think we did the migration now over a course of 3 weekends. Now, the particular part is, of course, because they're offering services that actually cannot interrupt, right? Of course, we needed to create like somewhere a maintenance window. So we did that during Saturday night from 1 to 2. No, actually not on Saturday. It's actually Sunday morning. So from 1 to 2 a.m. Okay. It's where we had the slot to migrate everything.
Okay, got you.
And the thing is, of course, for them as a customer, they need to their customers. They needed to inform their customers because they have this.
Just in case, yeah. This is the SLA.
Yeah,
okay. So a lot of coffee went over that night.
Well, a lot of coffee, but it went smoothly. So which means it's actually okay. You never know, right? When you do migrations. Shit happens all the time.
Yeah.
But luckily here, it's actually went very smooth. We didn't have much interruption. Maybe we lost like 1 or 2 pings max, which is actually it's good. I mean, knock on wood, right?
Yeah.
So, but we tested it beforehand, really how the process was looking or what we needed to do. But again, the migration was actually pretty straightforward, but it's not a complex migration, right? So, of course, you need to make sure that all the routing is correct. Everything needs to be set up if you're using BGP attributes to steer traffic, those kind of things, right? So, but after all, we were successful in doing this, and this is also something that provides me with confidence moving forward. In the previous session, we talked about it. Would you recommend this for other customers? Of course. If you look at the majority, what we have now in production, right? and how we migrated from a legacy environment towards a new environment. Again, I can think about like customers still having a classic DCI spanning, doing spanning tree, whatever, between data centers. Again, the principle behind it is the same, but it works. So it's something, maybe it's a little bit different on the migration path, but interconnecting your two networks and then do an approach of testing some VLANs, moving some VNIs, etc. So
the process was, that was, of course, there was migration, production with automation. How about monitoring part?
The monitoring part is, of course, important there because, within IP Nexia, they're using actually a TIG stack, which is Telegraf, InfluxDB, and Grafana. So the nice thing as well is actually, okay, we could reproduce whatever dashboard we had. Of course, we needed to, everything is a little bit more, the telemetry part is a little bit different, right? So we built actually the Grafana dashboard based on actually on the new hardware and how the feature, what is similar. So we had actually the similar visualization what we had before with when we were running actually on Nexus. And then of course what we do is actually now as well.
But now you can change it.
Now we can change it, yeah. Indeed, now we can change it. So what we're now doing is also monitoring, and depending on what is actually happening. The support team from IP Nexia get actually notification in their Teams channel as well. Any
specific telemetry or fancy telemetry?
That's a good question. What is fancy telemetry?
I don't know.
I'm just thinking about the word fancy telemetry. But the thing is, you get the standard output. You see the fans, the CPU.
Sure.
You see the BGP sessions, the routes that are available. Interface throughput.
So maybe better question.
Yeah, maybe
less about fancy telemetry. Maybe any extra automation with the notification. Yeah, because taking a look on the entire network, all those PSUs, all those metrics. I don't know. Are you maybe also monitoring the optics itself?
It's actually on we're not there yet, but it's something that we're planning on doing.
Got you.
Now, the thing is, of course, it would be great to see, from an optics level, what is available there and what we can do. But for now, it's important to understand the services, right? So if something goes up and down, or you have a flopping of a BGP session, those kind of things, the notifications are actually sent into, like I said, it's a Teams environment. So people are actually notified if something is going on. So then engineering can actually take a closer look what is happening. But for now, knock on wood, it's actually the network is really stable.
So the network is up and running. There is full production. So going back, if you could change something, would you go with the same steps, same principle?
I would, yeah. I would use the same stack what we did now, depending, of course, on the bandwidth requirements from the customer. Again, I think here, if you look at the size of the deployment and the future, what is going to happen, of course, yeah, for sure, I would always go to the same approach or hardware. Of course, when you do upgrades specifically between versions of Enterprise SONiC, of course, it needs to be tested, that the feature set are.
And you have like a small lab where you are doing some.
Yeah, we do some small labs, of course, to make sure that everything is actually up and running, and that's also the nice part. Of course, we're looking also in trying to see if we can run some stuff virtualized, or we need to have, of course, the hardware. Something that we actually now actively looking for STORDIS again. You provided me with a virtualized version of Enterprise SONiC, which is actually helping me as well to test out, of course, functionality.
But we can test a lot, yeah. But how about maybe the optics? Did you have to go with some qualification before, or did you use maybe the optics, or you've been also going with a higher speed? So
the thing is, we recovered a lot of the optics, which means also the optics that we had today. Of course, between the spine and leaf, we moved again. That was also one of the triggers. We had only limited bandwidth available between the spine and the leaf.
Okay. Yeah.
There was no spine, but let's be honest.
Flat close.
Yeah, flat close. Yeah. But So there we actually relied on Edgecore SFP. Edgecore itself. The SFPs and QSFPs that they provided. But for the rest, actually, we relied on for the connectivity towards, for example, the firewalls, the compute, all that stuff. we relied on the existing QSFPs, SFPs that we had, and it shows that even if it's a Cisco SFP or whatever FS or whatever it is, it still works in your hardware that you have chosen. So you have the flexibility as well. You don't need to pay pay premium money for something.
It's just coming from the same factory in the end of the day.
Yeah, indeed. Probably it's the same factory anyway. It's just branded different with this different sticker.
So speaking, what next?
Well, next is up, we're looking to expand, so which means actually for this particular customer, we're going to introduce a secondary data center to make sure that we have a little bit more redundancy and resiliency within the network itself. Again, now today we have, knock on wood, we have a really stable network, which means it's really, it's interesting to see, like, I can go, let's call it, I can go on holiday for a couple of days without worrying too much. And I think Michelle can also take some holidays and not worry too much.
But are you packing your laptop or not?
I will always pack my laptop. that's like my wife is sometimes really angry with me because I'm like, why do you need to bring me a laptop?
Maybe you need to check. I have those portable, phone. Yeah, it will not do the job, but it's helping you in the process.
Yeah, that's true. But okay, we're here now today in Barcelona. My wife is coming over now today, but I spent some downtime, so which means, of course, I have my laptop because we're doing here the session, etc., etc. But
sure,
I'm looking forward. But that's also helping me. If you trust the partners that you chose, and you have a stable network, you can also,
you can
take some downtime.
Spend a beautiful weekend with a wife in Barcelona.
Indeed. But yeah, coming back to the what's next, I think, in Europe, we have a lot of customers that have, refresh requirements in the data center, which are not maybe the biggest customers or the biggest deployments. But if you look at the size of what we did here, you can make this reproducible for different type of customers, right? So I think this is something that we're actually now looking as well, because as IP Nexia is also a managed service provider, they're having customers as well that are due to a data center refresh.
Potentially next customers for.
Yeah. And they're looking actually on guidance as well. And if you have something running in production which is really stable, it's also a showcase, and you as STORDIS will know, because you have also multiple customers, and you have also the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can add something from my end, today open networking is not only for the hyperscalers, same with the SONiC and so on. So we have customers who have maybe really a switch or two only, and that's it, and it could be enterprise SONiC, it could be community. If you will down your expectation, put more on the host, depends on the requirements. This is what we see. So I would say, like, I more than agree on that matter. Like it's ready for everyone, and I believe that the Europe is today full of such as potentially customers and partners who could need hopefully our needs.
I agree, and I think there is a segment of customers that are not really of interest for really big partners or really big deployments. And let's say, like, if you have 100 leaves or 200 leaves and stuff like that, of course this will scale as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think you're right. If you tell, like, okay, today, even the enterprise market, and I'm actually interested to see where we are going with SONiC Enterprise for the enterprise market, because I think there is also value for customers actually wanted to not rely on the traditional vendors, etc., and look at something a little bit more where they have more control about what they can do, and decoupling your hardware from the software layer.
And most likely still with the same confidence and the SLA behind which they used to getting from those traditional vendors.
Indeed. And this is also something which is nice, right? Because if something goes haywire, we can rely on STORDIS, which is a good partner as well, because we have that software or support agreement with you for providing us the service that we require.
Maybe a little bit going aside, how do you see the SONiC and open networking on the campus area today?
Well, I would be interested to see, because, if you look at what's available there, I would be of interest to see that there is a little bit more development done there, because I think there is a huge use case where we could deploy that type of
going
solutions for
to,
customers.
I don't know, universities, yeah, for sure. They have huge campus, yeah,
Campus.
which most of them, some of them are waiting for the refreshment, yeah.
Indeed, and indeed, I think university is a good example, because for example, as well, they are all a little bit more, they're open. Yeah, let's call it like this. They're a little bit more open, but even we have opportunities now for customers, such as customers from IP Nexia, that actually are looking for actively doing a refresh, and we're actually investigating what's the possibility to use SONiC as an alternative with decent hardware to provide that in an enterprise environment.
Speaking about the SONiC itself, do you see some value from the matter that it's based on the container?
Of course, it makes a lot. The thing is, imagine if you have a flat software, right? If you have containers, you can restart a container if something is not working as expected, right? So you don't impact the whole device, or you need to reboot the device or something like that. I think this is something that's really of value, and you can look at also, if you want to introduce some new features, it could be just a container. You need to just reinstall a container or upgrade a container. You just do a restart of that container, and you have your new features that you are there. I think that's really interesting.
This is something what they also been getting advanced from the previous environment, or?
No, well, the previous environment, yeah, of course, again, if you have a previous environment which is run like a bin file on a specific device, yeah, if something is not working, yeah, you need to reboot the whole switch, which then, of course, impacts your production traffic, of course. Fingers crossed, normally you will have some form of redundancy built in, whether it's MC-laag or it's called like a VPC within Cisco and stuff like that. So, but still, you have single connected devices that will still be impacted. And if you can reboot just a specific container or something like that, you don't impact the whole data plane already, right?
So, Alex, what is the biggest technical lesson from this project for you?
If you just make sure that you don't need to rely on the big vendors to have something that's production ready. If you look at, of course, never say never, but how many features do you actually need from a specific vendor, right? So a lot of customers don't need all the features that are required, right? Because, the more features you have, the more potential bugs you might end up with, right? So for me, it was a technical lesson is actually, if you do a lot of due diligence, you find the correct partner, you build up a good relationship with that partner, right? Whatever it's STORDIS and Edgecore, for example. And they support you in your journey from going from a classic network vendor towards something that's more open, right? What we have now. I think that's the most important thing. It's not really technical because, technical is just technical. We all know, you're coming from a hardware background, but you're technical. You the features, you can be able to configure it, but it's also not the non-technical part, which is really important for me. To rely on partners or on partners itself that can support me in this journey. But yeah, if I want to really look at it from a technical point of view, what is the lessons learned? Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I didn't think about that much, actually. So it's a good, something maybe I need to do while I'm having a sangria on the rooftop bar.
Yeah, come on, yeah, and that is maybe the really first very exciting one, but I know that you are also working with some other customers and some other opportunities, so maybe we will collect, I don't know, more those ideas.
True. I think, it brings you, of course, if you did a project like this, it helps you as well to look at different projects and where you can fit that the same methodology, right? And provide also the similar designs what you did.
Maybe different question, Alex. So that use case is public. Right. It went public, some while ago. So did you saw any feedback from the industry, from the customers, from the other partners, colleagues?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of interest specifically. I mean, specifically also Michel got a lot of feedback actually also from different companies. Customers are also interested to understand a little bit more because nowadays it's always important. And let's be honest, also pricing will be always relevant in this market, in this time of age. Pricing is also if you can have a good pricing, a stable network, decent hardware, or
So, without going into the details, always I hear, in the past that people are expecting that open networking could bring you, 50% off. Do you believe that it is more like a marketing slogan, or?
It's not marketing. It's really the case. And I mean, we did the financials together, right? I mean, we look at this project, and I can confidently say this is going to be. It's more than 50% than the pricing of if you go for a legacy one. Not only even from a licensing point of view, it's really something that to look at. And if you don't, if the specifications are there, why would one then actually pay premium money for something that does actually the same, and you can be also,
But do you see some missing gaps? We have hardware, software. Was there really something which was missing in your opinion? Or you've been also developing a lot from your side, but I don't know. Now with the whole experience, doing all the research and being where you are, is there something still which need to be filling?
For now, in the use cases that I was working on, no.
Okay.
I mean, it supported all the use cases or all the requirements that I had. It ticks the boxes. We can talk about open networking, and maybe you can say something about, but why did you go then for enterprise SONiC from Broadcom? There's multiple reasons, right? Because they have tested all the features. We needed some of the features, right? So multicast is one feature that we needed. So layer 3 multicast. The second feature that we wanted to have is actually the multi-site and multi-pod support. So that's why also we wanted to make sure that those features have been tested. Imagine if you need to rely on something else, or you need to deploy that yourself, or get your own agreement, but also the support in back.
Try to develop that. It's in theory possible.
Yes, it's of course everything is possible, but then again, then you need an engineering team behind it, and that's also something that's relevant.
So as the last, could you disclose, when we could have another meeting and maybe discuss more about the multi-site once when it will be done? What are the plans and timeframes?
Yeah, so if you look at the time frame now, it's going to be somewhere within the coming months that we're going to actively look at it, because it needs to be built, of course, right?
And
tested, of course. That's something that we need to do. That's also something that provides a challenge for now. So how are we going to test it in production? Or because we need to simulate something like what we have today. But I'm confident we can work something out, and this is something that we're now actually going to actively look at the coming months, actually.
So basically, you have in front of you still one peaceful weekend, and then again, back to the base.
Back to the base and start working, indeed. Well, beside that, there is still other projects that we're trying to achieve as well. I think we want to create something reproducible for other customers as well, and that's something that we have right now, and so we can provide that also, with guidance and provide that to the end customers of IP Nexia, for example, as well. And I think lessons learned. I mean, it's been an interesting journey. Let's call it like this, and I'm happy that we actually. We're very successful actually in deploying this on using SONiC specifically, and using actually Edgecore hardware with the support of STORDIS.
Yeah, I'm also really happy for the trust, which you gave us to STORDIS, to the team, to our support team, and looking forward for the next. Really appreciate your time. I hope that you have a lovely weekend with the wife. Now that you need to slowly run and pick up help from the
Duties.
airport. Duties are calling. Still on the laptop, it seems to be quiet. No tickets.
No tickets.
So all good. So once again, thank you for your time and see you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.